In this video, we are going to review changes of state as well as physical and chemical changes. Starting with changes of state, we are just going to go through each of the different types. First, starting with solid to liquid, that's known as melting. Going from liquid to solid would be freezing. A liquid to a gas would be evaporation. And going from a gas to a liquid would be condensation. Going from solid to gas is called sublimation. And going from a gas to a solid is called deposition. So you should know each of these different changes of state, and you should also get used to the symbols that we use for each state. So a solid we use an S, a liquid we use an L, and a gas we use a G. We are going to use those frequently throughout this course. Let's now look at the difference between a physical and a chemical change. A physical change is one in which no new substance is formed. The composition remains constant, but there is a change in one or more of the sample's properties. A really good example here would be a change of state, which we just went over. A chemical change is when products are new substances formed from a set of reactants. A chemical reaction has occurred. I like to write reaction RXN. The substance that is formed has a new set of physical and chemical properties. So this is the main difference between a physical and a chemical change. How do you know a chemical change has occurred? There are several different pieces of evidence that lets us know that a chemical change has occurred, and they are listed here. The first being a color change. So if you have a change in color from the reactants to the products, it means that a chemical change has occurred. If a gas is produced, so you get bubbling, that means a chemical change has occurred. If a new solid is formed when two liquids are mixed together, which is known as a precipitate. If electricity or light are produced, so an example here would be if you've ever seen magnesium burned in a flame, it goes to a very bright light. And I will post a video of that later on in our lesson. If heat is given off, which is known as exothermic, or taken in, which is known as endothermic. If a sound is produced, so you get a pop or a bang, that means a chemical change has occurred, as well as a new odor. All of these are key pieces of evidence that tells us a chemical change has occurred. There are a couple of other terms that you need to know for this lesson. So what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative? Well, qualitative is based on your senses. So it's something like a color change or a different odor or something like that is something that's qualitative. It's based on your five senses. It's not something that has a number. Qualitative is based on numbers. So when you're collecting data from an experiment, really what you're aiming to do is get quantitative data, because this is something then that you can graph or see a correlation between two different properties. So we aim to get quantitative data in science, but qualitative data does give us some information as well. A physical versus a chemical property, Just in terms of properties, it means things that you see. So a physical property would be what state it's in, or what color it is, whereas a chemical property would be something like what its melting point is or boiling point. So those are just some examples of different properties.